In TF2, there are many classes to choose from. You can fight from afar with Sniper, or even sit and spawn as Engineer whacking a sentry with a wrench. Spy doesn't really follow the normal trend of classes though. It's a class that's really only featured in TF2, giving it an enormous learning curve. Now, any player in TF2 with a decent number of hours knows how to counter Spy. So, the only way around Spy's counter is to learn more about playing Spy, through time and effort. Today, I'll be explaining the things I wish I knew when I started as Spy, and I hope any new players watching can apply themselves and learn better than I originally did. Starting off with something that'll make a few people click off, is that trick stabs 90% of the time are absolutely useless. Now, sometimes I'm guilty of trying to be flashy and getting killed while trying to Matador 3 heavies, but in reality trick stabbing is a tool, and it's part of your arsenal. Any player with more than 100 hours will know when a Spy is trying to juke them. They'll do anything to keep you in front of them, so you can't stab them. If you're being chased down and you have Dead Ringer, just pop it and get to a safer spot to plan out your actions. And never forget that Spy has a revolver. If it's really life or death, then you can usually just swap to revolver and you'll be okay. Spend some time developing revolver aim. It's pretty easy too with the stock revolver or Diamondback, because headshots aren't a top priority. But when you do need to trick stab somebody, this next tip should help you out in deciding how to. Try to be unpredictable, and I don't mean this in the obvious way like take weird routes or change up disguises, but what I really mean is make your stabs unpredictable. Don't think of it like, what memorized trick stab or route should I take? Instead think, what is the quickest and quietest way to get to my target's back? Think of it like this: the enemy player sees you go upstairs, they are going to be expecting a stair stab, but stair stabs don't have to be on stairs. You could stair stab off a teleporter if needed. Now, I often do this weird stab instead of a stair stab because enemies are expecting stair stabs when you're going upstairs, but rarely expect something like that. Try to look at your environment and base your moves and trick stabs off of your goal. If your enemy knows what you're going to do, it makes you readable enough to kill you. This ties in with my next tip: time of exposure. So I learned this from a YouTuber called 𝙎𝙪𝙨𝙀 back in 2021, but time of exposure is the amount of time the enemy has to turn around to see you while you're going for a backstab. Most Spy players overthink this too. It's really easy to find cover very close to enemies and make your move from there. The less time you're seen, the more unpredictable you will inevitably be. Play around with uncloaking in very small spots. You'll notice that they work more often than you'd think they would. Really, go out in a game and try it, it's overpowered. So this next tip is one that's a lot more of a psychological process than the rest, I'd say. Don't let yourself get tilted off of each death. Try your absolute best to understand what you did wrong in order to die. It's the key to developing skills in really any game or class in TF2. Like, sometimes I'll go for a backstab on a heavy or something and I'll uncloak right out in the open. That's entirely my fault. So next run, I'll be absolutely certain I don't do that same mistake. But sometimes the problem is harder to diagnose than the rest. Take into account what knife you're using, how you're using it, and if that's really the best way to be using it. Like, using your Eternal Ward and trying to chain stab a whole team is absolutely possible, but it's not exactly the best plan as compared to methodically playing with it, and buying your team a huge rush of time once it all pays off. So moving on to my next tip, use your entire arsenal. If you don't use your sapper, you're missing out on a ton of points, or even some cool clips of NG backstabs. If you don't use your cloak, you're missing out on some insanely easy stabs on unsuspecting players. And finally, if you don't use your revolver, you're fucking retarded. No, but for real, if you're missing out on half your kills, it's not wrong to use revolver. Doesn't mean you can't backstab, just means you can aim. So next time you see a scout that's spotted and you can't catch up for a backstab, shoot him. On to the backstab hitbox, my next tip. Arguably the jankiest hitbox in the game, except whatever the fuck this shit is. The backstab hitbox is basically just the enemy player divided in half. You'll know when you can backstab because the Spy raises up his knife like this. Over time, you'll naturally learn this hitbox though. You should shift off from backstabbing with the knife raise animation. You'll gain a feel for when you can backstab and you'll start to kill before the knife even raises. My sixth tip is a huge one. One that once learned can never be unlearned. The absolute key to acting. And that is, fucking walk backwards. I'm not even joking, backpedaling is like a free 5 to 10 kills a game sometimes. I shouldn't overstate how much power it is, but I mean, come on, look at this shit. It's actually stupid how many kills you can pull off with this. Anyways, for my final tip, one that should really help you out with trick stabs if needed, is wait till last second to swing your mouse for the stab. If you have better luck with the slow tracking aim based stabs, then you can risk it, but I myself develop flick aim way faster. The reason I say to do this is because you can abandon the trick stab if it looks like it won't work, or if it's too risky to pull off. This method goes for every stab. Matadors work extremely well at this method, but stair stabs do as well. Some spies will bait other spies into stair stabbing them, only to counter it. If you turn your mouse late, it'll give you time to react to a potential counter.